Hello and welcome to ANC Decides, the show that gives you up-to-the-minute reports, commentary and analysis building up to the ANC's December elective conference. I'm your host, Mfundo Mabalan. Here's what's making headlines. ANC structures missed the deadline for BGMs to conclude nominations. Questions are raised about the national conference being on track amid appeals and court challenges. ANC Secretary-General Gwede Mantashe in crosshairs about his tabulation of KZN BGM figures. KZN ANC says Mantashe referred to outdated figures as current ones. ANC Women's League gears up for Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma's mega rally in Mpumalanga. Dlamini Zuma expected to announce her running mate and clarify Titi Mabuza's position. The deadline for the branch general meetings to conclude nominations for the ANC elective conference has finally come, but the ANC has given branches a grace period until this weekend. ANC Secretary-General Gwede Mantashe says some provinces will need assistance in completing nomination processes as the November 15 deadline came with some provinces still lagging behind. Meanwhile, there's still outstanding appeals on BGM outcomes, with some provincial structures being challenged in court. Now, this raises concerns about the elective conference being potentially delayed as the organization seeks solutions to the problems.
The NEC condemns in the strongest terms reported incidents of violence at some of the BGMs. While they seem isolated, they nevertheless fly in the face of the discipline of the ANC. Because when there's violence in a BGM, what is covered in the news is violence in BGMs. And therefore, people begin to feel that there's just violence in the BGMs of the ANC. But the reality of the matter is that any incident of violence flies in the face of the principles of the ANC. Serious allegations were also made of the premeditated plan to collapse the conference. The NEC is unequivocal on the need to ensure that all incidents that took place will be investigated. There is a resolve to institute an appeal panel to the Eastern Cape, which will be composed of 4 NEC members and 3 other technical people who will back up that team of 4.
We now cross over to our reporter Giovanni Machani out in the Free State. Giovanni, a warm welcome to you. Can you take us through the state of readiness of the Free State, with today being the D-Day for BGMs?
Indeed, good afternoon to you, Mfundo, and good afternoon to the viewers. It has been a bit of an up and down here in the Free State, knowing that a number of conferences do need to take place before the big national elective conference that is happening on the 16th of December. We do know that there is a Garib region conference where the leadership of this particular region needs to be chosen. There has been seen a backlag in terms of the BGMs in that area, understanding that the members of the branches are not agreeing in terms of the leadership that they will be proposing going forward. We do know between the 1st and the 3rd of December, the Free State is having their provincial conference where they will be electing their particular leadership. Knowing this, we do know that a number of BGMs need to take place. We've confirmed with the provincial spokesperson, Thabo Meko, stating that 76% of BGMs are completed to date. This definitely lining with the deadline of the 15 and the BGMs not being able to meet that date. We know that a number of things are happening. We do know a court case was opened and then it was struck off the roll. So a number of things are happening in the province, bringing up the question of whether they are ready for December. But the provincial leadership have stated that they are more than ready for their different conferences that need to take place. We also heard the National SG Gwede Mantashe stating that December conference will take place. So all eyes on the provinces as they consolidate their leadership that they wish to go forward into December with, the type of policies that they wish to implement. But definitely here in the Fezile Dabi region, we've heard from the Youth League stating that they're standing the ground. They know what kind of policies they want to bring to the table for their provincial as well as the national conference. But an interesting note is that in the Metsimaholo area of the Free State, there will be by-elections on the 29th of November. Here we do know that the alliance partner SACP is deciding to contest these elections alone. This almost a small preview into what we've heard from Bladen Zimande, stating that come 2019, the SACP is not quite sure whether they will be running at it alone. But we've heard from the ANC Youth League here in the Free State saying that they will back their provincial leadership, saying that they will act on obviously attending to the issues of the people on the ground in any mandate and order.
No, Giovanni, thank you very much for painting that picture for us. Now, today in studio, we're joined by political analyst Kim Heller as well as Oliver Dixon. Panel, welcome to the both of you.
Thank you.
Now, specifically on Free State, Kim, there seems to be a lot of problems there. The PEC is going to, well, a new PEC is going to be elected from the 1st of December. They're having their conference. We've got also the situation around the state of the alliance there. It's quite a talking point because the SACP has decided to test its political might, where they'll be contesting the Metsimaholo by-elections. Do you really see them perhaps having more issues than what they bargained for ahead of that National Elective Conference?
I think it's going to be a real challenge, and particularly in that province. And I think it's bitterly disappointing to see some of the fractures and disruptions that we're seeing now. December should be a joyous celebration of ANC policies and ANC leaders, but we're seeing this potentially descending into what I would call a carnival of chaos. And I think in the case of the SACP, testing the waters, obviously they're democratically able to do that, and perhaps they want to test their strength. But I think it just adds at the moment to the fractures within the organization. I think we must be careful, though, not to supersize the level of chaos and disorder in the ANC, because we must remember that most of the BGMs have happened successfully and been conducted successfully without any disturbance. So on the peripheries, we have some of the provinces that are problematic, but I don't think that should be the key narrative. And I think the NEC is doing all that it can to make sure that December is going to be a showpiece of democracy at play, rather than a showpiece of or a showpiece of shame and disorder. But I think there are real questions that the ANC may need to tackle head on, and that is, what is the state of the branches? And I'm seeing a bit of a weakness coming into the branches, which I hope is not systemic, because that will mean that it will impact very harshly on the ANC come 2019. And that has to be resolved, with honesty and integrity. Whether this level of chaos and disorder and fragmentation is a systemic issue, as I've mentioned before, or whether it's just symptomatic of probably the highest level of contestation that we have ever seen in this party.
Oliver, your take on the state of readiness of the Free State, particularly around the PEC. We could see a new leadership and what it would really mean going into the elective conference.
Importantly, I don't think the reflection of the PEC and the leadership that will come in will be a reflection of how branches will necessarily vote come the elective conference. Importantly, that's because branches can still decide to vote different from the recommendations of the PEC. Gauteng last month, the Gauteng PEC last month made a clarion call to Gauteng branches, for instance, to vote for a particular candidate, while various Gauteng branches refuse to do so, where various Gauteng branches want to go in an opposite direction. That's not necessarily a bad thing. That doesn't necessarily then mean the ANC is fractured and there's no unity. This is just pure democracy. People are allowed to be part of the same organization and have differing views, and that's part of the nature here. But I think importantly, with regards to the fact that a number of branches still haven't concluded their BGMs and still haven't elected their sort of candidates of their choice, is indicative of the collective action problem that plagues the ANC at the moment. The ANC should have been able to tell that it has a collective action problem post the local government elections that happened last year. And that's particularly because the branch, at branch level, that's the most important lobbying level of the ANC. It is branch members who lobby other members of community to vote with the ANC. It is branch members who do door-to-door things. This is because you cannot be a member of the ANC without belonging to a branch. And if branches aren't functioning, it means that the lobbying and the collectivization of the party is just not going to happen. So it means the fact that the ANC lost a lot of voters, i.e. a lot of people are fed up with the ANC and chose not to turn up for the election. Importantly, they didn't choose to go vote in the opposite direction. They just chose to stay at home, right? That is indicative of a classical collective action problem that the ANC needs to worry about. So this problem of branches not nominating on time should have been seen coming a while ago.
An interesting point there. Now off to the KZN. A storm is brewing in the ANC over the discrepancy in branch general meeting numbers. The ANC has presented numbers which vary vastly with the KZN top structures tally. ANC Secretary General Gwede Mantashe has painted a picture of KwaZulu-Natal lagging behind in the number of BGMs concluded so far. However, KZN ANC spokesperson Mdumiseni Ntuli says Mantashe was referring to outdated figures. The number of BGMs concluded has a major bearing on the delegates each province sends and can sway the outcome in one candidate or another's favor.
The troubled province of the Eastern Cape is, as of yesterday, was at 56% of the BGMs. That's where it was. The Free State was at 75.9% of the BGMs. Gauteng was at 76% of the BGMs. KZN was at 40.8% of the BGMs. Mpumalanga was at 95.7%. Limpopo was at 73.8%. Northern Cape was at 93.9%. Northwest was at 54.3%. And Western Cape was at 66.3%. Obviously, we'll see where we need to intervene. That there are basically three provinces that needs to be helped to accelerate the process. It will be your Eastern Cape, your KZN, and your Northern Cape.
What we recognized yesterday morning when the SG was addressing the media was that the information at his disposal, which he used to quantify the progress we've made in KZN, was of that other week. It discounted the past weekend, the whole week of last week, as well as the weekend. And that is why when we saw it, the first step we undertook was for the provincial secretary to write a letter to the Secretary General, give him a breakdown in each and every region, including the total that we have attained by the end of business on Monday this week.
Now, Kim, would you say that now with that discrepancy around the numbers in KZN and across the country, really, not necessarily discrepancies, but the appeals, everything that we're seeing, do you think the ANC lacked the foresight here to say that there would be a number of issues that would derail or delay BGMs?
I think the ANC is being a bit amateurish in terms of its electoral preparations. It's not like this is the first electoral conference it's run. And I think it's faulted and there are obvious flaws. And perhaps like Bafana, they're scoring their own goals at the moment because if we, and I think that's contributing to a narrative of this great disorder and disarray. And that is creating a large confidence, a large crisis of confidence in the ANC among some of its members and in the broader population, and that could easily have been avoided. Now, if we look at this disparity in terms of numbers, there's no malice behind it, there's no sinister motive. It looks like it's a show of poor communication between the office of the SG and some of the provincial structures. So it's an internal issue which needs to be sorted out very, very earnestly and with immediate effect, because it is impacting on the credibility of the process. And as I said, creating this crisis of confidence, which is going to undermine this process further and which I think is going to be very, very harmful.
Now, Oliver, would you say that we've reached another urgent inflection point in our democracy here, now broadly speaking? I mean, there's a looming last downgrade from Moody's that everybody keeps talking about. And just listening to the Secretary General yesterday, he was talking about the issue of Treasury and the ANC's resolutions around higher education. He seems to say there is no discussion about free education at this point. It's just the modality, how they're going to go about implementing free education, whereas Treasury says something else. Are they finding each other? Do we have a crisis now?
I think importantly, I would say in some instances the party doesn't speak to the government, because it's important to make separation between the party and the government. However, and importantly, just because the party says one thing and the government behaves in another doesn't necessarily mean there's necessarily fraction. I think the party should be able to be more progressive in terms of the discussions and conversations they have, because they have more flexibility to have those discussions. So for instance, the ANC can go into a debate about, let's use an example relevant to today, command agriculture for South Africa, but imagine that to be a conversation of 30, 40 years later, right, while the government is not having that discussion. That's not to say that the government, that the party, the ANC as a party, is necessarily contradicting the government. It just means they're exploring policy alternatives far ahead into the future, which is necessarily what they need to do as a party. However, but in particular with particular regards towards free education, there is a bit of worry there. Particularly because of the sensitivity of the issue. One, Treasury is not singing in unison, for instance, with the presidency, with the report from the commission, but in particular with the party, particularly with the youth league of the party, and particularly with opposition parties who also care for free education. It's important that conversation, it's important that Luthuli House sits down immediately with its deployees in Treasury, and it's important that the youth league facilitates that conversation with regards to free education and how they can work together. From my understanding and at least my belief, there didn't seem to be much of a conversation either between Blade Nzimande and Pravin Gordhan in this issue. And similarly, I don't think that there's a conversation of a similar kind between Minister Hlengwe Mkhize as well as Minister Gigaba at this moment with regards to this issue. So I think importantly, they need to sit down and have that. I think Buti Manamela and Minister Hlengwe Mkhize needs to sit down with Malus Gigaba and his cohort and discuss quite strongly the funding model that was proposed.
Now off to Mpumalanga. Nkosazana Dlamini-Zuma has received a nod from the ANC Women's League in David Mabuza's province in Mpumalanga. And interestingly, NDZ's campaign will coincide with the CR17s in Mpumalanga this weekend. Lemogang Folke filed this report for us.
Following the call made by ANC Women's League NEC, Mpumalanga has made its official position clear to back Nkosazana Dlamini-Zuma for the presidency, a move that is seen as empowering women in the party.
Viva Cosatu, viva!
And we discussed and agreed that when we look at Dr. Comrade Nkosazana Dlamini-Zuma, she is capable, she has credentials, she has quality leadership that we have seen her effecting in different departments that she has led. We have seen that she is able to can unite not only South Africa, but Africa as a whole.
The Women's League also supports the call to have the provincial chairperson, David Mabuza, as Dlamini-Zuma's deputy president.
We are saying the person who can deputize Umama Nkosazana Dlamini-Zuma, who has a vision of uniting the country, the ANC, is Comrade Didi Mabuza, the provincial chairperson of our beautiful province. We have seen how he has worked. He has moved into different provinces, trying to talk sense of unity, trying to preach zealously and moving with speed that we must unite, because without uniting, we are going to lose all of us.
Meanwhile, Dlamini-Zuma will be on the campaign trail in the province for the very first time since the start of the campaign season.
Yes, I confirm she will be here from Friday. She will be meeting various stakeholders. She will also meeting the kings at KwaMhlanga, because we will be having a very big rally, which is Molo Makelwane launch. This has been launched last year at Free State for the entire country, but for our province, it's then that now we're launching it. This is a program that the ANC Women's League works hand in glove with the ANC to ensure that as ANC Women's League, we are able to go to households, not only during campaigns. Currently, we go to households, check their welfare, their challenges, and report to the BEC of the ANC for the councillor and the BEC of the ANC to assist households.
With the ANC Women's League in Mpumalanga officially announcing their preferred candidate, which is Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma, it is all systems go to have her be in the province in her campaign trail over the weekend. Yet it remains to be seen whether Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma will in fact get the full backing of this province. Lemogang Foke ANN7, Mbombela.
We now cross over to our reporter, Lemogang Foke. Lemogang, a warm welcome to you. Now, today is D-Day for BGMs. How far is Mpumalanga in terms of concluding this critical step ahead of that elective conference in December?
A very good afternoon to you, Mfundo. Thank you very much indeed. As you have indicated, today is the deadline for those BGM's nomination processes. But we do understand that there are some branches in the province that will be falling into the grace period, which ends until over the weekend, where some of the branches will be getting an opportunity to obviously conclude these nomination processes. And I must say, Mfundo, you know, when we spoke yesterday to the Ehlanzeni Regional Secretary, Phazami Samate, he did make mention that, you know, these targets that they currently have, especially in Ehlanzeni region, are very, very achievable, especially because there were about 17 branches which are still needed to sit. And they were saying that within the 2 days, given yesterday and today, it is something that could be achieved. However, if we see some branches falling into the grace period, it is something that they will manage to conclude. And also, you know, I think with the conversations that we have been having with the people around here, the leaders of the ANC, the Women's League, you know, campaigning still continues, lobbying still continues, regardless of the branches that have concluded those nomination processes. We know that Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma, as well as Deputy President Cyril Ramaphosa, will be in the province over the weekend on a campaign trail. This is not the first time that Ramaphosa will be in Mpumalanga. However, since the campaign season started, this will be the first for Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma, and of course with that official announcement from the ANC Women's League in the province to back Nkosazana as the ANC as a preferred candidate for the ANC presidency. It's going to be interesting to see how she is received in this province, given that the two front runners in the race are going to be in the same province, which is seen as the kingmaker given the number of delegates that they will be sending to the conference. So it's going to be very interesting to see where the support will go, since we know that the SACP, COSATU in the province have made mention of their preference for Cyril Ramaphosa, and also having the Women's League as well as the Youth League pronouncing their support for Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma. However, because it lies to the branches, we will see definitely what comes out of that weekend, and also saying that you know, they support the call to have the provincial chairperson David Mabuza as the chairperson, as the deputy president to Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma, and of course all the other names that accompany that slate, including Ace Mahashule, Natim Tetwa, Jesse Duarte, just to name a few. So it's going to be very interesting as to what happens coming out of this province, especially seeing that there has been, you know, this unity message that has been coming out. But when we spoke to the Women's League in the province, they did make mention that they see David Mabuza as a unifier. Hence, David Mabuza is the fitting candidate to deputize Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma. So we wait to see how the campaigns for the front runners are going to be received in this province, and we'll sure give some feedback on that afterwards.
No, thank you, Lemogang, very much for that update. Now, Kim, your take, a very interesting province there. Now, the premier or chair of the ANC there, David Mabuza, has been making headlines since being revealed as the kingmaker. What do you make of his elusive behavior? Is it to his advantage to just remain in this manner where he just keeps his cards close to his chest?
I think it's a very intelligent and strategic maneuver on his part, and I think it's a deliberate one to play his card right at the end. And I think if there's ever going to be a weekend that's very lit in terms of electoral campaigning, it's going to be in Mpumalanga. And this is obviously the province that's richest in terms of votes. It's a prized province. And I have no doubt that Dr. Dlamini Zuma is going to come out as the victor here, as far as a provincial pronouncement is made. But as Oliver correctly said, the end of the day, the decision will be made by delegates on the day. And I don't believe that even if the province stands behind her, that necessarily means that we're going to get 100% of the branches behind her. And if I just may end, just in seeing how people are rushing to the deadline as far as meeting the BGM target, I'm a little concerned that we're rushing this process too much, and I think there's an inherent danger in that. And just a final word from me, it's incumbent, I think, on the ANC leadership at the moment to make sure that the delegates that go to the December conference are those that reflect the real voices of the ANC in the provinces. And I hope that process is honoured fully and with integrity.
Now, Oliver, your take on the chairman, David Mabuza, because, I mean, it's being reported that the NEC actually spoke out against those that were calling for the dissolution of the Eastern Cape PEC. So it was something that was a bit of a confusion if he indeed belongs to that faction that was in support of that dissolution.
Yeah, I mean, David Mabuza has certainly switched sides subtly between week after week. And I think it became more pronounced when Cyril Ramaphosa announced Naledi Pandor as his deputy. I think he lost quite a bit of the support he would have had in Mpumalanga. And it's interesting that Nkosazana is going to Mpumalanga only now, and she's been campaigning for a while. Why only now? That's because she now sees the potential of gaining ground with delegates and branches in Mpumalanga, because Cyril lost quite a bit of that. And I think Deputy President Cyril Ramaphosa should work hard if he's any serious about regaining credibility in Mpumalanga. He should be working hard this weekend with his campaign trail over there to win back that, but importantly to sell the confidence of Naledi Pandor to the people of Mpumalanga.
Well, it certainly will be an interesting weekend. Now, finally, to this week's poll question. The question this week is, will the mining charter enable the sharing of South Africa's mineral wealth? Do give us your thoughts on this on our social media platforms. And that's where we end today's show. Until next time.